The 80s and 90s were dominated by anime that embodied the spirit of wuxia, but within a Japanese setting. Wuxia is a Chinese genre that centers around martial heroes, placing importance on factors like martial duty, chivalry, spiritually inclined power systems, and personal codes of conduct existing outside legality for wandering heroes. And Japanese anime has never been devoid of traditional fighters such as martial artists, samurais, and ninjas who operate outside the legal system. As such, incorporating wuxia in anime brought great success with critics and fans alike. That's why we made a list of 11 such anime released across the 80s and 90s for this video, which embody wuxia precisely because we want to highlight how the theme works when seen and compared from a Japanese lens. It's going to be a good one, so let's get right into it. Rurouni Kenshin, 1996. Starting off strong with the beloved Rurouni Kenshin by Wuxia, this is a story set in the Meiji era of Japan, or the late 1800s, that revolves around a former ruthless swordsman becoming a pacifist and wandering across Japan to atone for his former sins. Formerly known as Hirokiri Barosai, the man was an assassin during the tail end of the Edo period. He worked against the shogunate, following which he made the vow to never take another life again, leading to him becoming a wandering swordsman across the Japanese countryside who had dedicated himself to protecting the Japanese populace. Upon reaching Tokyo, he met a woman named Kamiya Kaoru, who was fighting a killer allegedly named Hirokiri Barosai. Kaoru had accused the impostor of tarnishing the name of the school of swordsmanship that she taught. Kenshin defeated the impostor and went on to live at her dojo after she learned that he was the real Barosai. During this time, Kenshin dealt with old and new enemies and formed lifelong bonds, which also came with having to protect them, this time not as a human killing machine, but as a pacifist protector who wielded a reverse blade. This also came with new struggles involving getting stronger without falling into the pit of returning to his old life as a cold-blooded assassin, leading him back to his former master. One of the most prominent themes in Rurouni Kenshin is the Bushido, which is not the same as wuxia, but both philosophies refer to a code of conduct with respect to morality, honor, martial arts, and the way of the warrior, especially with Kenshin searching for atonement and practicing restraint despite having a lethal background as a killer swordsman. Despite a more passive approach, the story revels in its historical setting, romanticized battles, Kenshin's path to heroism as he strives to protect the weak, and the solidification of personal morality. The anime's soul remains rooted in samurai drama, but its flair is comparable to wuxia precisely due to both being influenced one way or another by Confucianism, which places great importance on loyalty, social hierarchy, respect, and duty. Rurouni Kenshin, Trust and Betrayal, 1999. The tale of Kenshin came to a satisfying end but left us with some unanswered questions which could only be answered by a prequel, which resulted in the Trust and Betrayal OVA. It's natural to want to know what went down with Kenshin back in the day, how he got his signature scar, why he decided to leave his former life behind and do a 180, and everything that went down between him and his former lover, Tomoe. As such, the prequel takes us back to the Bakumatsu era, which refers to the final years of turmoil during the time of the shogunate. A bandit raid had left a young boy named Shinta among a group of travelers with nowhere to go and no one to take care of him. He was spared and rescued by a swordsman known as Seijuro, who had mastered the legendary Hiten Mitsurugi Ryu. When Seijuro witnessed Shinta bury both attackers and victims alike, he took in Shinta as an apprentice and renamed him as the titular Kenshin. Kenshin grew up to become a powerful swordsman and eventually abandoned Seijuro following a heated dispute. Contrary to his master, Kenshin believed in joining the revolutionary forces that opposed the shogunate in order to protect the weak, as per the oaths taken to perform the Hiten Mitsurugi, in the process taking a stand against the shogun. Eventually, he became an assassin for an esteemed revolutionary known as Katsura Kogoro and became the notorious Hirokiri Barosai. During this time, he got his cross-shaped scar from a bodyguard named Kiyosato Akira, who was Tomoe's fiancé. He spared Tomoe and was later relocated to a separate village. While their bond grew stronger, Kenshin stayed unaware of the fact that Tomoe had conspired with the shogunate to avenge her dead husband. However, she did eventually fall in love with him. Ultimately, Kenshin learned the truth and fought the agents of the shogunate, during which his blade accidentally killed Tomoe while she completed his scar. This became the primary reason for him to leave his ruthless life behind, as he vowed to fight for Katsura's vision and become a pacifist while the shogunate collapsed. Samurai Troopers, Ronin Warriors, 1988. Hajime Yatate's anime series, in true wuxia fashion, is set in a historical world. 1,000 years prior to the events of the show, the mortal world had been conquered by a demon known as Talpa. Due to his incredible strength, there was no one who could oppose him until a warrior mage appeared with his white tiger and defeated him. However, such an evil being could not be permanently killed, and the mage knew that, which led to him splitting the demon's armor into 9 separate parts. Each part was then passed down among 9 families. Naturally, after Talpa returned 600 years later, he went on a quest to search for the split armor. 4 of them went on to be manipulated by the demon due to their weak hearts, and they became Talpa's Dark Lords of the Netherworld. More time passed, and sometime in the 20th century, Talpa returned to conquer the mortal world once again. However, the titular Ronin warriors are in possession of the remaining 5 armors. While Talpa was hell-bent on conquering the world with aid from his 4 dark warlords, the Ronins went on to oppose them with their mystical weapons and supernatural armor. In the process, they found assistance from a young student and researcher known as Miyakoji, a child named Uli, and a mysterious warrior known as the Ancient One. What Samurai Troopers Ronin Warriors does with respect to wuxia is that it embodies many of its principles but through a Japanese lens. We have fantastical battles where some people are airborne. Each bit of armor has an elemental affinity or a specific supernatural power, such as controlling fire or imbuing the user with speed. The existence of Ronins itself follows wuxia principles, since Ronins are wandering samurai who have no lord or no master, and as such, are not following a code of conduct to protect anyone in particular. Their entire sense of morality is personal and their own. The Ronin warriors do not fight Talpa because they were ordered to, but because it's the right thing to do. In that sense, they make fantastic protagonists. The Hakkenden, 1990. The Hakkenden is a story about 8 samurai brothers who must find each other, unite, and defeat a demonic force. It's set during the Sengoku era. The princess of the Satomi clan, Husei, spiritually birthed 8 warriors with a demonically possessed dog as the spiritual father. Yeah, that's as weird as it sounds, but this is the reason why the samurai warriors went on to be referred to as dogs. These warriors were scattered across different regions with their birth, and as such, had to recognize each other and unite to fight the final antagonist, that is, the Awa clan. 3 distinguishing features contributed in helping each warrior recognize their kin. Firstly, their names would start with the prefix Inu, which translates to dog in Japanese. As such, we get characters like Inuzuka Shino Moritaka, Inukawa Sasuke Yoshido, Inuyama Dosetsu Tadatomo, and more. Each of them would have a peony-shaped birthmark that resembled the emblem of the Satomi clan, and the scattered beads that contained their souls in the first place would all bear a kanji that represented a fundamental value of Confucianism. However, the antagonist faction, or the demons, were hell-bent on turning them all against one another, which isn't a huge feat considering the brothers don't know that they're brothers. So the burden of finding and uniting them all fell to the protagonist, Shino Moritaka, who represented the Confucian value of filial piety and wielded the living sword spirit of Murasame. Ultimately, he manages to make the 8 dog warriors assemble and fight as allies, representing the Satomi clan, to defeat the Awa clan. The story borrows from Kyokutei Baken's novel. As a literary classic of its time, Hakkenden the novel also delves deep into themes like filial piety. Confucianism is a core philosophy within the story, and with each character, we see Confucian values such as faith, loyalty, duty, wisdom, brotherhood, benevolence, and respect. Each warrior inherited each bead in a karmic manner. For example, Inuzuka Shino Moritaka bore the bead Ko of filial piety because his father committed seppuku to protest against the local feudal lord before returning the demon blade Murasame to the shogun. With wandering warriors, swordplay, martial arts, and themes such as righteousness in the mix, Hakkenden blends into the world of wuxia, which is only natural due to the story's thematic focus on Confucianism. The Dagger of Kamui, 1985. Heroism is great, but we also have a soft spot for revenge stories. Love me some Kurapika, Sasuke, Uchiha type storylines, you know what I mean? And this is what makes The Dagger of Kamui so special, as we get to experience a tale of revenge within wuxia. During the Meiji Restoration, a soul baby drifting away on a stray boat was taken in by an innkeeper. He was accompanied by a glittering dagger, the titular Dagger of Kamui. When he turned 13, Jiro found his adoptive mother and sister murdered in their own home. To make matters worse, he was accused of committing the crime. The false accusation led to him fleeing his village, and following this, he met Tenkai the monk. Tenkai tasked Jiro with killing Taroza, a rogue ninja. As the boy worked on this accomplishment, Tenkai took him in, and Jiro was trained to become an assassin and a shinobi. During this time, Jiro met Taruza. He used to work for Tenkai until he fell in love with an Ainu woman and aborted his mission. For context, the Ainu people are the indigenous community from Hokkaido. In fact, The name of the show has much to do with Ainu culture, as they believe in spirits, known as Kamui, residing within every element in the natural world. Tenkai blamed Toruza for killing his adoptive family, causing a vengeful Jiro to stab him with his dagger. Years later, Jiro met his biological mother, who confessed that the true killer was Tenkai himself, who had previously sent Toruza to find Captain Kid's treasure and was doing the same with Jiro. With this new revelation, Jiro plans to challenge the shogunate that Tenkai was guarding and use the treasure to aid him in his goal of killing Tenkai and avenging his family. Through this journey, he was accompanied by his dagger of Kamui as he traveled to America and Russia during his treasure hunt. Jiro's journey, although not heroic, is powered by him personally bringing his family to justice. As such, it's his morality that's not aligned with the law in true wuxia fashion. Unlike the other entries on this list, the dagger of Kamui also lets us dive into another wuxia element, that of a quest for finding treasure, that too, a treasure that can change the tides of the society the story is set in. Ninja Ryukenden, 1991. The Legend of the Ninja Dragon Sword, or Ninja Ryukenden, was released as an OVA to the Ninja Gaiden games for a sequel storyline. The events followed the defeat of the Demon, that is, Gaiden's prime antagonist, and revolved around Ryu Hayabusa's life in New York as he ran a curio shop, a shop that sells rare and strange objects, with his girlfriend, Irene. Ryu was pursued by beings in business suits who exploded after being defeated. Their ID cards connected them to Freedman Enterprises, prompting Ryu to infiltrate it. He went on to have a vision about a young girl being trapped in the Freedman headquarters. At the same time, Irene believed that Ryu was overworking himself and met up with their common friends to convince Ryu out of it. Following their search for Ryu, both parties ended up at the headquarters where they realized that Dr. Freedman was creating demons. The next day, Ryu and Irene's friends, Robert and Sarah, interviewed Professor Bucky Wise about Freedman, and it was obvious that the professor was holding information back. That very night, his cat entered Ryu and Irene's curio shop and was followed by more demons that the couple had to fight back. Unfortunately, Irene was kidnapped on the way back to their apartment, prompting Ryu to return to his ninja suit and go to town against Freedman's forces. He blew up the demon-creating lab with help from the girl in his visions. Eventually, Ryu found Freedman and Irene, but Professor Bucky Wise stabbed Freedman from behind as it was revealed that he was the mastermind behind everything and had kidnapped the girl from Ryu's visions, that is, Ned Freedman's daughter, to coerce Ned into recreating the evil gods. Bucky Wise turned into a demon, and ultimately, Ryu unleashed the power of the Dragon Sword and took him down. Ryu is a prime wuxia hero for many reasons. He descended from a line of warriors known as the Dragon Lineage, and as such, wields the legendary Dragon Sword. He can perform regular fictional ninja techniques like scaling walls, running on water, and making long leaps, all of which are trademark ninja moves. He plays with physics and creates matter by channeling his spiritual strength to perform superhuman acts. Due to the presence of demons and gods, however, Ninja Ryukenden also crosses the boundaries of wuxia and enters the Shenxia, or immortal hero fiction territory. Flame of Recca, 1997. Next up, we have Nobuyuki Anzai's Flame of Recca, which also happens to be about ninjas. The story revolves around Recca Hanabishi, a teenage boy who claims to be a ninja and eventually pledges his loyalty to a girl with a healing ability known as Yanagi Sakoshida. Eventually, Recca finds out that he can generate and manipulate flames, and also happens to be the 6th generation leader of a wiped-out ninja clan known as the Hokage, which translates to Fire Shadow, explaining why he can manipulate flames in the first place. The ninjas of his clan used to use mystical weapons known as Madagu, which imbued the users with special abilities, in this case, matter manipulation. In the late 1500s, an infiltration was carried out to get the Madagu, while the primary antagonist, Koran Mori, wanted the one Madagu that would give him eternal life. For that purpose, he kidnaps Yanagi, hoping for her immortal powers to make him immortal. To save her, Recca joins the Uraburo Satsujin, where warriors wield Madagu and battle one another, and eventually head out to beat Mori after the latter gets close to acquiring the Heaven and Hell Madagu, which actually had the ability to make one immortal. This story, with its emphasis on a hero's journey, chivalry, a martial arts tournament, manipulation of spiritual energy to create matter, and so on, falls under the brand umbrella of wuxia. Among everything, the element that contributes the most is the existence of Madagu as a legendary artifact that contributes to the supernatural and mystical power system of the show. However, there is a catch. The story does dive into very high fantasy elements such as immortality, or the existence of flame dragons, and Yanagi's supernatural healing factor. Wuxia is supernatural, but the fantasy is not allowed to cross a certain threshold, as seen with stories like Rurouni Kenshin. But similar to Ninja Ryukenden, Flame of Recca also dabbles in Shenxia here and there. Yu Hakusho, 1992. When we're talking about martial arts anime, there's no way we're leaving out Togashi's Yu Hakusho. This supernatural fantasy follows the story of Yusuke, a teenage delinquent who gets killed while trying to save a child. Due to the sheer altruism of his actions, there was no place to allot him in the afterlife, so Yusuke is offered to return to his mortal body if he passes a series of tests. Once he returns to his body, he's appointed to become the spirit world detective who will investigate all supernatural activities taking place in the human world. As such, he deals with cases such as retrieving stolen treasures from an underground gang of demons. He acquires supernatural abilities such as the manipulation of Reiki and finds a martial arts instructor, bringing him to an aged woman known as Genkai. And, in true shonen fashion, he participates in tournaments. Eventually, he meets a human-turned-demon who invites him to the Dark Tournament, where humans and demons duke it out to receive their desires. The story follows the occult deeply and takes great inspiration from Buddhist mythology, more so than wuxia itself. It also has high fantasy elements, as you can clearly see with the demons in the underworld, Sanzu River, ghosts, and more. We would still argue it draws from Wuxian roots due to its nature as an Asian fantasy that draws deeply from Asian theology, places great emphasis on martial arts, and uses spiritual energy to funnel said martial arts. In fact, Yusuke's act that kills him in the first place is one where he operates as per his own moral code, much like a Wuxian hero. He's a delinquent, which is a great disgrace in Japanese society, but he dies in an altruistic act, making it difficult for him to fit into either heaven or hell. In conclusion, it's Yusuke's personal moral code that becomes essential for the events of the story, but it lacks the essence of a fighter who's seeking adventure like wuxia truly demands, and instead has Yusuke doing the things he does because, in a way, it's basically his job. Street Fighter II V, 1995. The 1995 Street Fighter anime is peak wuxia, with Ryu and Ken traveling and wandering across the world for the sake of martial arts, as they join battles in tournaments to become the greatest. Their journey, at least in this anime, began with them facing defeat at the hands of Guile. Through various battles and experiences, they came across the likes of Sagat, Bei Long, Chun-Li, and Dalsim, until having to face their prime antagonistic faction, the Shadow Law Organization, headed by M. Bison. Throughout everything, Ryu and Ken have one goal, and that is to get more skilled in martial arts. The power system is influenced by Chinese Qi, where the energy of living things supplements their fighting style. This is broadly visible more so for Chinese characters such as Chun-Li. For Ryu and Ken, there are power systems such as the Satsui no Hado, which is a dark energy-based force, unlike their original light energy-based force. Either way, the power systems, although fantastical, seldom enter high fantasy territory. To top that off, Ryu struggles with Satsui no Hado as it goes against his teachings, laying emphasis on the moral conduct of the protagonist and his personal code. All in all, Street Fighter is one of the most perfect entries on this list. Fatal Fury, Legend of the Hungry Wolf, 1992. For our penultimate entry, let's talk about Fatal Fury. The story takes us to Southtown, where Terry and Andy Bogard lose their father Jeff when they're young, as Jeff gets stabbed by an attacker and is confronted by his old rival, Geese Howard. During his burial, Terry and Andy, supported by their master, Tung Fu Ru, are made to promise that they will reunite as powerful fighters in a decade to avenge their fighter. Terry returns 10 years later, and his father's rival, Geese, finds out about it from his right-hand man. During this time, he comes across new people such as the Muay Thai champion, Joe Higashi, and eventually gets reacquainted with Tung and Andy. From Tung, the boys learn of a new technique. That is the Hurricane Punch, which he says he will teach only one of the two brothers. And the way to be that lucky person is by entering the King of Fighters tournament, with the victor getting to learn the technique. Geese continues to be an obstacle throughout everything, but Terry and Andy go on to become the finalists who battle one another while an assassin tries to take them both out. The bullet is taken by Joe, and they all escape with help from Lily, who had initially been manipulated into helping Geese murder Jeff, but went on to fall for Terry. Unfortunately, Geese gets a hold of Lily once more and throws her out of a window, killing her. The Bogard's master, Tung, is injured as well, but emerges from his coma to teach Terry the Hurricane Punch. Unfortunately, he dies from the demonstration. Ultimately, Terry uses a variant, the Hurricane Kick, to defeat Geese. In the end, Terry, Andy, and Joe go their separate ways once more. Much like Street Fighter, Fatal Fury 2 is deeply rooted in wuxia, as you can see with the wandering lives of the characters, with them going their separate ways, returning, and fighting in a tournament, and living by their own honor codes while trying to avenge their father's assassination. There's also wuxia's master-apprentice tradition, to the point that Tung gives away his life to teach Terry the final martial arts move. Samurai Shodown, The motion picture, 1994. Finally, we end this list with Samurai Shodown, the motion picture, which is based on the 1993 SNK video game of the same name. The story is set in the Sengoku period of Japan, where an earthquake results in the resurrection of the dark god Ambrosia. This Earth has 6 warriors, but there's a traitor among them in the form of Shiro Tokisada Amakusa, who has betrayed her vows as a holy warrior, who's meant to protect the seal over Ambrosia and is chosen to dance with the devil. Ultimately, she burns the other warriors alive, and yet fails to destroy their souls. Over the next 100 years, Amakusa gets the shogunate on her side, while the other warriors are reborn to seek justice. Amakusa sets out on a manhunt for them, while the winds against Amakusa's reign grow stronger. The holy warriors reach Edo to reunite with the last saint soldier, Hao Homaru, but he has forgotten his past, unlike the others. Things eventually work out, and the final showdown has the holy warriors going against Amakusa, who's revealed to have betrayed them after being struck down by her commander, due to which she broke the seal with her last breath and was revived to serve Ambrosia. Meanwhile, Hao Homaru ends up remembering his warrior past and his spirit is freed, leading to a final showdown between the warriors and Amakusa's force. Ultimately, Hao Homaru's final strike takes down Amakusa, who dies a holy warrior due to being freed from Ambrosia's influence. Her spirit entrusts her sword to Hao Homaru, giving him the power to defeat Ambrosia. Reincarnation, spirits, chivalry, vows, Samurai Shodown has it all, explaining why we're ending our list with it. But, similar to Flame of Recca and Ninja Ryukenden, Samurai Shodown also deals with Shanxia, as you can see with elements such as the Dark God. However, the execution of it all is rooted in Wuxia. Marvelous verdict! These 11 animated works represent a time where the martial arts were inseparable from Japanese media. Martial arts have always had honor and moral codes deeply embedded within. After all, to wield such immense power, you need to exercise immense physical and mental restraint. Hence, honor, martial arts, and morality are inseparable from Wuxia, while the trope of the wandering protagonist gives it its necessary fantasy whimsy. If you enjoyed this breakdown, don't forget to like and share this video, and subscribe for more deep dives into the world of anime and manga. Your support helps us bring you even more of the content you love. Thanks for watching, stay safe out there, and have a marvelous day.